Good evening. Well, I'm back from Baltimore, and I decided to stop at Brunswick and walk by the river for a few moments. And I thought this was a good time to talk about the Supreme Court. We have had a somewhat undisciplined conversation, merging things together, very emotional. And I understand the emotion, because to take away a constitutional right that was hard-earned is a very emotional thing. But we're not being precise, disciplined in our attack on what's going on here. Think about the fact that the Supreme Court in the election of Bush and Gore, they were hack politicians then. They actually decided the outcome of a presidential race and left a very deadening feeling in our once vital republic, that we had taken a turn from maybe the 60s in the court, in which we looked at what it meant to have a 14th Amendment transposing rights to all the states that were not being honored. But let's focus on the current dispute. And the current dispute involves the assertion of the right of privacy of a woman to have dominion over her own body. And it was decided in a case written by Justice Bill Douglas, who found that there was a penumbra, an emanation, if you will, of the constitutional rights to be let alone. The Fourth Amendment securing your person and your home. The Fifth Amendment right, a right to have due process, basically meaning fair play. And that when in Connecticut, in Griswold against Connecticut, the case that Douglas decided, they were making it a crime to do anything that would cause contraception. Imagine that. And people don't focus on that, but that's where Justice Douglas looked at the law and decided it was unconstitutional because it invaded the marital home, the very privacy of the decision to have or not have children. So when we got to Roe v. Wade, that was an expansion of that right. In the first trimester, a woman basically could do what she wanted. In the second trimester, there were some limitations. In the third trimester, that there were going to be exceptions in that last period that would matter. And all that's washed away. And here's another error that happens. You'll hear people saying, most of America is for this right. Well, that's nice, but that's not how you define a right. A constitutional right is the right of an individual, in this case a woman, to say, I have dominion over my body. No matter what you think, what religion you have, or anything else, it is a right against the wrong of the government to interfere in that individual right. It doesn't come with a majority. Individual rights are things that are annoying to some. The majority do not support. And so you can assert that right. When the Constitution was passed behind closed doors and the secret records not disclosed for 40 years as to what was said, Patrick Henry and others objected. What about our individual rights? And that's where the Bill of Rights came from. Individual guaranteed rights. And so as we came into an age after women have been treated as chattels for so long, we established that they have a right, a dominion over their body. They have a right to be let alone. And for 50 years, that right has been the subject of many cases as to what it meant and what would be an interference with that right and what restrictions, if any, were possible. Now, there's another point of law. See, not politics, law. The law says that we look at earlier decisions and we follow them. And so for 50 years, we have followed this decision. And this decision has been evaporated, it appears, in a draft written by Associate Justice Alito, the little Scalia. And of course, it's a man writing it. Amy Barrett, no doubt, wanted to write it. But he is senior, and he gets to choose among the members of the court, and he's written a draft. And this draft says, oh, that was a big mistake. And he says, don't worry, we're not going to apply this to other things. But consider the fact that under oath, each of these justices, told members of the Senate individually and in sworn testimony that they respected the notion of precedent and that Roe v. Wade was settled precedent. And they're saying, well, don't worry, other things like gay marriages and all these other things, they're not affected by this. Well, if you couldn't believe them under oath and you couldn't believe what they told the senators, why would we believe Alito and his draft opinion, which is a first step in addressing and redressing and eliminating other individual rights and liberties that we've long fought hard for under the notion of equality, under the notion of sufferance, of those things we disagree with, because it's an individual right. There has been a remark about, isn't this like the Watergate papers that were released? Well, those were meant to be secret. This opinion in draft form was meant to be secret, but it's not state secret. But what it does tell us, whoever released it, is that these guys are political hacks, that this follows a trend in America in which we suffer the absence of law, in which the impulse, whether it be the case of Bush against Gore, or now the case of the state versus an individual. These people don't care about these people. And I resent the fact that politicians are telling us that they'll pass the law, because they won't. It'll be like Build Back Better. Sure, we can pass it in the House if we can agree to it, but we can't pass it in the Senate without turning back the cloture vote. And when Democrats in the caucus had a chance to vote on this, there were only 46 in support of a right of abortion in America. So let's deal with the reality. And what the reality is, if this goes forward, is there'll be 20 states that will have outrageous anti-abortion laws and 30 states that permit men and women to choose together, or a woman to choose alone, to have an abortion. And that's as it should be. This is wrong. It is an individual and a constitutional right. But America has been compromised. It's been compromised by ideologues. It's been compromised by Jewish and Catholic superstition for those who believe that conception is the beginning of life and we must preserve that life. Those of us who have a spirituality or faith have got to correct this error in American history. So those are a few of my thoughts about what's going on right now. People are protesting and angry, but I think they have to focus on what they are angry about. They should be angry about losing a constitutional right by a bunch of hack politicians who were elected not because of their wisdom at the law, but because they signed a contract silently, implicitly, or expressly that they would destroy this right that women had. So women started as chattels. They couldn't get the vote until even after slaves did. And now we're returning them to that besieged state in which they cannot believe in America they have the rights they thought they had. So that's a couple of thoughts I have about it. Holly is doing well. I'm grateful for your messages and your kindliness. And today she was walking on a treadmill. Not fast, but she was walking on a treadmill. So we're working toward the point when she'll come home. And we're, of course, anxious about how we'll handle all the different things, including the pills and whatever additional strength she'll need to restore herself to where she was. But it's also an exciting challenge that we be together again. We miss her at the place. The animals are asking for her. You're asking for her. So I'm looking forward to her coming home soon. And for my stepdaughter and daughter, this is a bad day in America. Not that either one of them may ever want an abortion, but the symbolism of taking away from the right to have dominion over their own body, that's unacceptable in America. We're going backwards in time, and it's time that we set the law straight, because now we live in a place of chaos in which fiat rules, because if you have the numbers, you have the outcome. All the best. Talk to you tomorrow if I can. Bye-bye.